I do on the faculty recommendation bit. You should start asking your faculty to write letters as soon as you think that they can write you a good letter. Because once they've written a letter, all they have to do is revise it for you every time a new fellowship is due. So then you don't run into the, oh my gosh, my chair is in Syria, for example. My chair is in Syria right now, and I need 20 things, and I can't get in touch with her because she's got really bad email in Damascus or wherever she is. If you've got letters that you've asked for before you even had any fellowship you were thinking about, then they've got a draft that they can work with. You've got something you can send if you can't get in touch with them. There's also a really good service for the management of letters that I just learned about. It's called Interfolio, and it's an online letter distribution system so that your faculty members can simply upload their letters to Interfolio, and then you can send them out. So you're not constantly asking your faculty. I'm one of these people who feels terrible asking for favors. I hate it. It makes me feel awful to keep on asking my faculty who have given me so much to do one more thing for me. Oh, I need one more letter. I have one more fellowship. You're going to apply to tens of, or 20, 30 fellowships. You're going to apply to a ton over the course of your time. And so if you can figure out a way that you don't have to feel badly asking your faculty to continually rewrite their letters or continually send them out, uploading them to Interfolio means that you can send them out yourself. And of course, don't send out the letter from last year, this year. They need to update that letter and say what you've done again this year. But Interfolio allows you to sort of be in control of making sure letters go out. The other thing that makes me nervous is my chair is wonderful, and she will admit this, so it's okay that I'm saying it on video. She needs pestering sometimes. She can forget when deadlines are, even if I've told her. So once her letter was up on Interfolio, she could forget every deadline she wanted to because I was in charge of sending out that letter. And taking that control over from your advisors about sending out your letters is an enormous relief. I can't even tell you. So anyway, it's a little bit early for most of you on this front, but fellowships will start coming up, even if, NSF is an early one. And
right.
So anyway, that's my advice on the letters faculty front.
Right. Well, so I guess my advice would be more on the time management and deadline management front. Is that so each year? Well, not each year. I have a spreadsheet of grants or fellowships that I would be interested in, and I have a column for the name and whatever, and then a column for the dates. And so I spend a decent amount of a day compiling that. Just so I did it one time. All the dates are in one location. I don't have to go back to the websites to look them up. And then, so I use Google Calendar when I am planning stuff. And so I'll put in deadlines, I'll put in the main deadline, but then you can set up reminders for those deadlines or put them into your calendar 3 months ahead of time or whatever. Essentially, so I'm getting email reminders counting down, oh, you have 6 months until this deadline. So it's not, I can ignore it at 6 months if I want, which I usually do. But at the same time, it's always in your head, so it's not all of a sudden 2 weeks ahead of time you're like, oh, I hadn't even been thinking about this. So from a time management point of view, that's worked for me to keep it in my head, and all it takes is setting up once, and then it's going to continually remind you if you just set it up once that right way, and that way you're not being forced to look it up every month. It's coming to you essentially, and so it's always, these things are always in your mind basically, so you don't forget about them.
I'm slightly more old school. I write down all of the applications that I have. They are usually due in the fall. So I, sit down in I don't know, August and look at all of my fall dates, and I write them on a sheet of paper, and I tape it to the wall right behind my computer so that they're staring at me in the face all the time, and all I have to do is look up and be like, oh, like this deadline is this date, and it's, I need to make sure that I'm ready for it. Or so high tech, low tech, but it's the same principle that you want to sit down really early on and get a sense of when all those deadlines are going to be so that you can then organize your time around them.
Yeah. If you're behind this fall, you forgot about stuff, don't just say, oh, I missed it. Write them down for next year and take care of it now so that you have those things already in your head for next year. You know the deadlines now, they'll just be a year later essentially. Do it now while it's in your head.
And one more thing on that. There are a lot of grant opportunities that are not mainstream, that could be very specific to what you study, and your departmental administrator is not going to know about them. these guys may know about them, but who knows? And this is where asking colleagues that work on similar issues, so if there are lots of fellowships on political violence, and I don't study political violence, but I have a colleague who does, and so I was always frustrated that he could apply to these fellowships on political violence, and I couldn't. But the only way he knew about them was because someone else that worked on political violence, who worked down the hall, had also gotten them. So it's connecting with people that might have it be sort of working in similar areas and might know that, Guggenheim's got this great pre-doc that they do, or whatever it is that will help you become aware of all of these opportunities that you had no idea existed. One of my colleagues in political science has a great pre-doc right now at NYU that I didn't even know existed, and it's on political order, and it's this neat little pre-doc where he gets to hang out and teach a couple classes at NYU and gets a nice paycheck for it. I had no idea, and so I didn't apply, right? I wouldn't have known. So it's not something that's housed in any central information source. So you just have to be active about asking everyone you know about the potential for fellowships. Go on the websites of other universities where you might be willing to spend a year in your 5th or 6th year doing a pre-doc to see if they've got them. Because sometimes they're just sitting on their website saying, the Macmillan Center at NYU has a pre-doc in X, and you got to go on that center's website in order to figure it out, and it's totally annoying. But with a little bit of effort, you can end up from having no funding for a year, particularly once your 5th year ends and you're stuck, to having a great fellowship where you're not only getting really good teaching experience, but you get to live in New York on a great salary for the year. So, you just have to search those things out. What I'm saying is don't stop at all of the resources here and the offices here. Right. Continue to do that investigation through talking to peers and just through seeking out places that you think you might be. If you hear of a center that does work on something related to what you do, go on their website, see if they have grants, see if they have fellowships.
It's great advice. Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask people either.
Yeah.
I mean, I still am sometimes, but you really can't be, because everyone who you think might be able to help you out used to be in your shoes as well, and is going to be more than happy to point you in the right direction if they know. And it doesn't really matter if you don't know them or anything. You can send cold emails to people with a little introduction and just ask those questions. And in the end, you're going to be much the better for just doing it. You don't have to be afraid of doing it. No one's going to think it's annoying or anything like that. They're happy to help.
I would think it would be somewhat flattering too, for an advanced graduate student to think, "Wow, this person thinks I know what I'm doing." So, yeah, it's a great way to meet more people in your field.
I feel up here, right?
The other thing I'm reminded of by this comment is we were chatting earlier about the how to go to your first conference. Conferences, for me, they're really hard. I go and I don't like to talk to people, and I want to sit in the back of the room and not introduce myself. And in fact, those kinds of connections are not only how you get a job when you leave, but also how you might get a fellowship. So you could go introduce yourself to someone who gives an interesting presentation, describe your work, and they say, "Gosh, that sounds really interesting. We've got a pre-doc next year at wherever that's a new one. You should apply."